Welcome to Beyond the Huddle, a Central Arkansas FCA podcast where faith meets competition. Join host Josh Adair and Zach Rose as they dive into real stories from athletes, coaches, and leaders making an eternal impact through sports. Each episode brings powerful conversations on faith, leadership, and living boldly for Christ in every field of play and walk of life. This is Beyond the Huddle.
Welcome to Beyond the Huddle, Central Arkansas Fellowship Christian Athletes podcast where faith meets competition. My name is Josh Adair, here with Zach Rose, and we're interchanging back and forth between driving back and forth. But I'm so excited my guest today. Not often do I get the chance to say this, but I don't know if y'all know what a doppelganger is, but occasionally I get confused for this person in the chair beside me. And I just roll with it. And a lot of people think that sometimes, especially around Fellowship Bible Church, if I show up with a cleanly shaved head and a trim goatee or similar height and stature, I just pretend to be Mark Henry walking around the place.
Well, that can be good and bad, depending on the day. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I go to the Cabot campus and people are like, oh, Mark's here today. I'm like, hey, give everybody, hey, how you doing? Just keep on trucking.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, nobody knows. So actually they do know after a time, but it's a lot of fun. We're excited to have Mark.
Yeah, honored to be here.
Pastor Mark Henry here, former FCA staff member many moons ago. Just excited to hear stories of faith. And trust in the Lord. And we're going to talk about parenting too, because I don't know many people who've done it as well as you have, even though you say you probably wouldn't agree with that, but the proof is in the pudding. So.
Well, it's a great privilege to be with you guys. So thankful for what y'all are doing in Central Arkansas and all around the state and really all around the country through athletics. FCA's meant a ton to me and to my family, and just incredibly grateful to be here and be a part of what you guys are doing.
Well, thanks. It's Mark, you may not know this, but this podcast is all because Zach came on staff, and you heard a little bit of his story before. And during the interview process, he's like, hey, I'd really like to just do a podcast so we can go deeper in people's stories, talk about a little bit of pain, talk about how Jesus has provided and found himself to be faithful. And
here you are.
Here we are. Yeah.
This actually might be a full year of podcasts. This is either 51 or 52. So
every week for a year.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's almost a year. I think we might be 51. So it's still a special episode, but I just need to throw that.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you're keeping track of that, because we're just plugging along, and sometimes I'm here and most time I'm not. And then when I get to be here, it's an extra blessing. I did not know that I was going to have a chance to be like every other church pastor in the world during COVID to go become a televangelist.
Yeah.
Now I get to just every once in a while I get to do it weekly and point people to Jesus. Because for those of you listening on the radio, Faith Talk 995, we actually do this on YouTube also. And so if you want to see what we actually look like and what we're talking about, or if we make a gesture or something, go look us up, Central Arkansas East FCA on YouTube, and there's all of our episodes there as well. So.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Pastor Mark, we want to kind of jump into your story from usually from the beginning is where you start a good story. So would you mind just sharing with us a little bit about your upbringing? You went to Little Rock Central, is that correct? Your time at Central, growing up in this area as an athlete, and kind of how you came to your faith, a little bit of your testimony and your story. I'll let you kind of run with that however you want to, but just kind of from the beginning and formation.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I grew up here in Little Rock. I grew up in a good home with great parents, but grew up really far from the Lord, and was raised in the public schools here in Little Rock, and really thrust myself into athletics when I was around junior high and started playing football. Some of that was just due to my size, and it was also just a place where I found a lot of validation. And so I went to junior high at Henderson here in Little Rock, and then went on to Little Rock Central. Had a lot of success in football, and was able to get a scholarship to Arkansas my senior year. And so my senior year, we won the state championship at Central, and then I went up to Arkansas. And while I was there my freshman year, I had somebody invite me to actually an FCA huddle. They didn't use that term FCA huddle like we use so often. It was more of a small group Bible study, but in that FCA Bible study, one of the assistant coaches at Arkansas started talking about what it's like to have a personal relationship with Jesus. And that was a new concept to me. Well, what is this personal relationship with Jesus? What's all this about? And so I listened to him. And then that night I went back to my dorm room and I had a little bit of literature with me and I was just trying to figure this whole thing out. And I tell people that's really where God's love ambushed me, was in that dorm room. And I was overwhelmed that God could love someone like me. And it was then that I gave my life to Christ and entered into a personal relationship with Jesus. And from there, as with all of us, there were some highs and lows being in college and all of that. But eventually that led to me leading some Bible studies there myself with some of the players. Eventually ended up in what would be a semi kind of team chaplain role there, both for the football and basketball team. Back when Nolan Richardson was there. The coach at the time was Danny. He was coach out of Clemson. He was the football coach. I can't remember his last name. And so I really were cutting my teeth as a young man and a young leader with Bible studies and teaching the team and doing those kind of things. And that's really in a short, just a short story about kind of how I came through college, how I came through high school, ended up coming to faith. Coming out of that is when I ended up moving back down to Little Rock. That was in 93. Where I moved down to be a part of FCA in Little Rock. At the time, there was FCA in Fort Smith, and then that was really it at the time. T. Ray Grandstaff was in Fort Smith, and then I came to Little Rock and helped get that started there, and was there a few years, and then went off to seminary, and kind of the rest is history, I guess.
So what? Just for reference, your years that you're at the University of Arkansas?
I was there from 87 to 91.
87, 91. What position did you play?
I played 3 years at guard, and then my last year at center.
Okay.
My last year I was all conference. Back then, the conference was a Southwest Conference. Only the older folks would really remember that, but the rival was Texas and Texas Tech and some of those teams. And then later on, the year after I graduated is when they joined the SEC, which was 1992.
Wow.
Little trivia, I'm the last player at Arkansas to ever make All Southwest Conference.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just a little bit of trivia.
That's awesome. That's great, man.
I don't think that'll ever show up anywhere, but just a little tidbit of nonsense that Yeah.
You don't know. You never know.
You never know.
So how many times have people walked up to you and recognized you as that?
As an all conference?
As a last SWC all conference from University of Arkansas?
Nobody.
Man, we got to work on that.
Yeah, we got to work on that. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, we got to work on that.
We need some recognition around here.
We do.
Yeah.
No, in the midst of that, with all of my kids and everything, trust me, I'm way down the depth
That's what I'm
chart
saying. You've had great kids, and
Yeah.
we're going to talk about that here in a little bit about parenting and raising up men and women who pursue Jesus, and what all that looks like.
Yeah.
Opportunities, just because you lay the groundwork for them, doesn't always lend to people making lifelong followers of Jesus, and just to have the opportunity to walk through that. But just let's see. So 4 years in Arkansas, you're a chaplain a little bit, came to Little Rock, did you say 90 to work with Fellowship of Christian Athletes? So how did that work? So leaving out of University of Arkansas as the last All Southwest Conference member.
Yep.
From the University of Arkansas. What's that transition to the FCA look like? Why the ministry? Why the opportunity?
Yeah. Well, I loved, as Zach said a moment ago, I loved athletics. I'd seen the influence that FCA had on my own life and how God had used that to draw me to himself and how that had impacted me. I hadn't really thought about going on FCA staff. T-Ray approached me about that. I was excited about being able to come back to the city where I grew up, be able to really build something from the ground up. Knew that the city of Little Rock in particular just needed something like this. And so all of that was just super exciting to me, to be able to look back and see the difference we were able to make, being a part of that. It's incredible. When I graduated, I had a chance to go into the NFL. I wasn't going to be like a top draft pick or anything like that, but I was a candidate for that, but really just felt like in that moment in my life that the Lord was leading me in a different direction. And so I didn't pursue. I didn't go to the combine. I didn't do any of that. Yeah. I really gave myself to ministry, and that really set me off on a different trajectory with that. But that's how it really ended up at FCA. I was just drawn to young people, the opportunity to make an influence, share the gospel in schools, and use a platform that I had back then with playing at Arkansas and all that meant, and the doors at times that can open for you.
Absolutely.
So it was a really good time.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And how many years were you on staff at FCA?
I was on staff, I think 2.5, 3 years with FCA.
You got to work with Robert Upshaw?
I did. And I actually hired Robert.
Okay.
And, Robert and I worked together. I hired Robert about 3 or 4 months in, and that was one of the best things I ever did. I haven't made many good decisions, but that was a great one. And Robert, of course, kept on after I had left, did an amazing job, is still here in town, and a pastor himself, and does remarkable things. And I just have tremendous admiration for him. But we tag team for quite some time there.
So when you came on staff, how many people were on staff in the state of Arkansas at that time? Do you remember?
One.
T-Ray.
Yeah, T-Ray. Tell you, if I remember correct, T-Ray was the only staff member. And then I came on and I was number 2. And then from there, FCA began to grow a little bit.
Wow.
Yeah. And I know it's changed a lot, thankfully, since then.
Yeah. I just asked our state director today. I was like, so how many's on staff in the state? And he said there's over 70.
Wow. That's truly remarkable. Now, I could have my wires mixed up on that, but I'm pretty sure that's correct, that it was just me and him.
I mean, that's
time.
From 2 to over 70 in 30 years.
I'm not counting, administrative assistants.
Sure.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
70. That's awesome.
Over 70 across the state, and still adding more people who want to be a part of what we're doing.
Man, that's great to hear. I had no idea that it was that size. I knew it had grown a lot.
Yeah.
But if you would have asked me, I would have guessed 30 to 40.
Yeah.
So to hear it's double of that, that's quite remarkable to see what the Lord's doing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So in the beginning time of your transition to FCA and thinking about a larger scale vision for what you hope the Lord could do through that ministry, but also the practical reality of where you're at when you started, what did that look like? What was the lay of the land for you? How many areas were you serving over, and what did ministry look like at that time?
Well, I started from ground zero. I officed out of Emmanuel Baptist Church. They were kind enough to give me a free office, and it was just me in a room of a building that for the most part was vacant during the week. So it was just me in there, and no windows in this office.
So you had a closet.
Yeah, pretty much. But I'm incredibly thankful for their generosity in doing that, because it allowed me to have a place to gather and use a phone and all that kind of thing. But that's where we started. There were a few huddles in Little Rock that were meeting. In my area at the time, it's hard to even imagine at the time was Little Rock, North Little Rock, Hot Springs, and Malvern. And we dipped down into Pine Bluff too. Pine Bluff High, Watson Chapel, and UAPB. And it was, so it was a pretty big circle.
Oh, yeah.
Cabot, I don't remember going up to Cabot, but we did go into Conway back then. And so Conway was included in that. So it was a pretty big area. We started out with maybe a handful of huddles. Eventually that grew into, I want to say it was around 60 huddles at one time when probably I left. And again, most of the credit for that goes to the wonderful coaches and other volunteers that lead those groups. And we just had, at that season, and I know we still do in the state, we just had so many wonderful coaches that were able to see their platform as more than just winning games, about, discipling young men and young women. And it was just a pleasure to come alongside them, support them, help them. But it was really a start at ground level and build it up.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to think about. Obviously now there is more staff in place, but even 70 staffers, I feel like sometimes we're a little bit understaffed in the ways that the ground that we're trying to cover and the depth that we want to see ministry happen, and in the depth that God wants to move in and through the lives and the hearts of our coaches and athletes all throughout Arkansas, and especially here in Central Arkansas. It's so amazing to see when coaches lead and when they just how their athletes respond to them. If you haven't, you're listening to this and you haven't watched the Drew Harris episode that was last week, you need to. It's an incredible story. He's talking about how his students were responding well to the youth pastor that came and volunteered and helped, but even more so how they responded to their coaches when they really led from a heart and posture of service and love and care for their athletes. And I think it's cool to see how far FCA has come in that realm, but also how that model is still the same today, of when we can get our coaches on board to say yes to not just what FCA wants for them, but what God has for them. So many lives are impacted because of that. Is there a moment or time or a story that you can maybe share with us of your time on FCA staff that was super impactful to you, or even just a seed planted that was an opportunity to grow ministry?
Yeah, I think one of the greatest moments for us where we started the first ever FCA camp in the state of Arkansas, and we did it at Arkansas Tech. And it was a dream of mine to be able to start a camp here, because back then you had to drive and the cost was prohibitive for a lot of coaches and athletes to get buses or however to get there. And I don't remember all the locations at the time that FCA had camps, but it was a long ways away. And so we started the first camp ever. And
either Black Mountain.
Yeah, it was. I want to say one of them was
Estes Park.
Yeah, Colorado, and I want to say North Carolina. Is that?
Yeah.
And you think about Arkansas and get on a bus, a school bus, and no air conditioning, and driving there, and it was just super complicated.
Absolutely.
So we said, man, what if we started our own? And so we went to Arkansas Tech, and they had a wonderful coaching staff at the time. Brooks Hollingsworth was there, a great man, and we convinced him of this dream of starting something, not even really knowing what we were doing. And we were charting a new course, and we ran our first camp, and we had, if I remember right, 200 to 300 kids that came. Not just from the state of Arkansas. We had a lot of kids that came from Texas, and we started drawing kids from Oklahoma. And at that camp, we had a lot of kids that crossed the line of faith, a lot of kids that went back to their schools, started huddle groups, got involved in FCA. I just felt like it was a real monumental moment in the life of my time there with FCA. And that camp continued for quite some time. Eventually it fizzled out and didn't happen anymore, but it continued beyond me for a while.
Yeah. So we still do FCA camp, but it's in Lonsdale.
Yeah.
Spring Lake Baptist Camp.
We used to do like an overnight weekend camp at Lonsdale back in the day, but never did a week-long camp in Lonsdale.
Yeah.
The great thing about Tech was you've got the cafeteria there. The food was pretty good. You have all the athletic facilities. You had the basketball gym. You had the football field, the weight room, all the stuff that a lot of players are looking for. And so it was a great place to do a camp. And so we had girls and boys that came. So the girls were on kind of one side of Tech, and then the boys were on the other side. And then when we met together, those two groups came together for the evening, and we brought in speakers and that kind of thing.
Sure.
It was great. It was
awesome.
really good. Yeah.
It's so good. I love hearing history and how we often don't know how we've arrived to where we've arrived, but when you hear the past, you're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, it was really a special, incredible moment. I've been to Lonsdale. It's definitely off the map. You have to kind of turn to the left there off the Hot Springs Highway, and there's a small sign that says Lonsdale.
That's it.
But it's a Baptist camp. It's great once you get there. It's really beautiful and a special place. But it was neat. The Tech thing was a really cool experience.
Yeah. So now Arkansas FCA camp will max out at 350 campers for junior high and 350 for high school.
Wow. Are those run in the summertime?
They are. It's June. What's the dates on that, Zach? June
7th through 10th is junior high camp, and the 11th through the 14th is high school camp.
Yep.
Yeah. There's still time to get signed up.
Absolutely.
You can go to arkansasfcacamp.org to get signed up today.
Yeah. My daughter was asking, what's that website for camp? I'm like, it's so hard. Make sure you write this down. arkansasfcacamp.org. So hard, so tricky. She's like, thanks for doing that. I never would have remembered. I'm like, well, I didn't do it, but please don't forget it. So cost for camp's $300 a person. And if you need help with that, reach out to us. We have scholarships available because we never think it's money's not a reason for people not to go to camp. There's always people who've been impacted by camp, met Jesus at camp. Their life's been transformed. They want to reinvest in kids to go to camp. So reach out and let us know. And
and I would say as a parent, man, you want to try to do everything you can to send your kid to camp. There's just something that happens, I think, in all of our hearts when we get away and we step out of the routine and we're able just to kind of things slow down a little bit. The Lord has a way of working in us and moving in the lives of our kids in a way that is very, very different than just the day-to-day grind of school and athletics and everything else. And I think camps can be a wonderful opportunity for that.
Yeah. I think Mark Batterson says it best, that a change of pace plus a change of place equals a change in perspective.
Yeah, it's very well said. He said it a lot better than I did.
Word math for you. There you go. You can use that and save that for later. Mark, you may know this, you may not know this, but it's your fault that I work and felt God's calling to FCA. Did you know that?
I do. Actually.
You remember that conversation?
Yes. I'm trying to think whether it was T-Ray or someone else.
Mark Miller?
Yeah. It was Mark. It sure was. I had breakfast with Mark, and he said, man, we're looking to hire a couple of people. And do you know anybody that you think would be good for that? And I thought about you. If you remember, you were in kind of a season of transition that we won't go into, but it was a season of transition for you. And I felt like in the moment, every time I was around you, I felt you had a passion for students, and you obviously have a background in athletics.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a big man. And I mean that in the best sense of the word. And that's big man coming to big man. Okay? So,
I remember you would come to cabin and preach like we're raising a basketball team around here.
That's right.
All you short people need to rise up.
We still need to start a church league team out there.
Yeah.
That's funny. But when I heard that from Mark, I almost felt like the Lord was just saying, man, this is a dude you need to put forward. And I'm glad I did. Just to see how the Lord used you, how he's blessed you, to see the fields of faith out in cabin. And I know there's so much more that you're doing in that area on that, but just to see that, how incredible that is, it's just really, really cool.
Well, thanks.
It's been fun to see that. How long has that been now?
6 years.
Yeah, that's hard to believe.
Yeah, it's gone by fast.
It's really hard to believe.
Time flies when you're having fun.
It is.
Especially when you're doing the work that the Lord's called you to do,
Yeah.
and you wake up every day not going to work.
I think it's super cool. And just to see how the Lord has worked in and through you, it's been fun to see.
I appreciate
and
that.
of course, I just played a little tiny role in that, but I do think I pushed Mark a little bit, and I think he made the right decision coming after you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a great fit, and it's never been work a day. It's just, what do we get to do today?
It didn't
How
help
do we
your
get to have fun?
Didn't help your jump shot much. I
Appreciate
think it's
that.
beyond that. But
Yeah, it's all right.
Near 7-footers don't need a jump shot, though.
But when you do have one,
yeah, it's deadly. That's right.
it's something nobody expects, and
If we ever played together,
stretches the
I'm gonna
court.
just ask you to go sit on the block and go get some buckets down there.
yeah, it's
Just
not
be
fun.
honest with
It's
you.
not fun. When you're older you get, the more your body doesn't move like you remembered it to be. It's a whole lot easier to shoot a jump shot than it is to bang on somebody.
That's fair.
It is indeed.
That is fair.
Why do you think you see more 7-footers try to shoot threes? Because they're tired of getting beat up down low by little
That's
people.
fair. That's right.
Yeah,
He's very right. I'm
Yeah.
watching the NBA
playoffs.
playoffs right now.
Yeah.
Very well said.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's cool. So a lot of people don't understand, or maybe not, how you're calling to ministry. You felt called to the Lord when you're in college through FCA. And now you've been a pastor for how long?
30 years.
Holy cow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a really
So what was that transition like in thought from a parachurch organization doing work, trying to complement and supplement local churches to being on staff with the church? What that looked like for you?
Yeah. Well, there's two things there. One is when I was in college, my plan was to go to law school, and really had a moment where I felt like the Lord was tapping me on the shoulder. I haven't had a lot of moments like that in my life, but on this particular one, I just felt like the Lord saying, man, that's not what I have for you. And so I took a different step. And that's when I really started getting more involved with FCA at Arkansas and leading studies. And I wasn't on staff or anything, but I was leading and all of that. And that really helped launch me. When I went to seminary, back then they didn't have online. I know, Zach, you don't believe this, but we didn't have the internet and all of that. And yeah, I know it's shocking to you.
Oh man.
No cell phones, nothing like that. So you actually had to uproot and go to school.
I was going to say, how did you do anything?
Yeah,
I guess you actually had to go to school.
I know it's hard to believe. We actually had to write on paper and those kind of things.
Wow.
But I actually uprooted and went to school up in Chicago. And where it was there that the Lord really gave me a heart for his people, for his church. And I think FCA really helped prepare me for that. There's not anything I really do in the church world that you guys aren't doing, except, it's a lot of what I'm doing is on Sunday morning. It's with a different set of people, but we're all moving in the same direction. We're trying to honor our King. We're trying to bring him glory. And we're trying to help more and more people realize, man, how desperately they need the Lord Jesus. Yeah. And so we're all doing that. It's just in a different way. But that's really when I was in seminary where I felt like the Lord saying, man, I want you to be a part of my church and my people. And so that's when I got invested in that and started that right out of seminary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. 30 years.
30 years, yeah.
And how long has that been? How many of those years have been here at Fellowship Bible Church in Little Rock?
Yeah, Fellowship Bible Church in Little Rock. I've been here 17 years.
Wow.
And then before that, I was in Atlanta leading a church there for about 10 years.
Okay.
So that makes up a good bit of that 30.
That's crazy. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Got anything?
I was just going to bring up, so you talk about kind of parallels between what you do with FCA and what you're doing now. I think it's important to recognize, even just for anyone listening, that discipleship in and of itself, I feel like we've just been kind of talking about this, and at least in my own personal life, I've been a little bit stirred up by the idea of discipleship and what it looks like to pursue people, not for them to be shaped by our view of God, but for them to truly be shaped and molded by their own personal relationship with Jesus. And so how do you feel like from high school to college, and your transition into, you talked about how your time in seminary kind of shaped some of your thoughts and ideas. What do you feel like was the big like hit for you of, this is something that I have to do with the rest of my life? This is something that's so important to me. Because I think there's a lot of students, student athletes, or even just students in general that would say, man, I'm looking to be honoring to the Lord in what I'm doing, but I don't exactly know how to figure out that call. I don't know exactly how to live that out on a day-to-day basis. What would you say to someone who's trying to figure out how to be a good disciple of Jesus and also be obedient to the calling that they have on their life?
Well, I think I want to be clear. I think everybody has a calling. You guys have got a calling. I think a lawyer has a calling. A doctor has a calling. We're all disciples. We're all making disciples everywhere we go. The difference is that what I do is I do that all the time. And so, but we're all called. We all have a mission that we're supposed to be a part of. And I think if we're not careful, we can kind of set it up where like the professionals do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I maybe go on Sunday, but kind of Monday through Friday, I'm not really doing that. And I don't think that's what the Lord calls us to. I don't think it's what the scriptures, and I know you're not presenting that, but I think we all have a unique calling. But for me, I think with my calling and what I would tell a young person is just that I realized I just had this overwhelming sense from the Spirit that my life was to be really laid out before the Lord in a way that anything else that I would do was not going to make me happy or was not going to be what he had called me to do. And that I wasn't going to be happy doing anything else. And it's hard to really describe that, but I tell people that if there's other things you can do that you find pleasure in and joy in and love to do, then you may not be called into ministry. God may want to use you in those environments to make disciples, to share the gospel with people. For me, what I felt every time I tried to step outside the lines of what it was that the Lord was calling me to, for example, law school or whatever it was, there was always a sense of, man, this isn't right. This isn't where I'm supposed to be. And I think the Lord, through the work of his Spirit, confirms in us what those things are.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just think we get in a hurry at times to figure out what those things are. And we want God just to speak on our timetable about what those are. And he doesn't work on the same timetable that we do.
Mm.
And I think we're in a generation of phones and everything we have, and it's so immediate that the Lord is slow, and he doesn't always move at the same pace that we want him to.
Yeah, definitely. I guess to further talk through that, as a father with your own children at home, how does that play out with you, encouraging them to do the same in their lives? And you can share as much or as little about your kids and their athletic background or any of that. I don't really know so much about fully what that looks like, but as you, from an athlete's perspective, from your own journey, help prepare them for what's ahead, what are some strategies and ways that you pursue them in relationship, in love, as a father and as a friend?
Well, that's looked very, very different through the years, because my kids now are 31, 27, 25, and 22. I have 3 sons, and then my baby is a daughter. So my oldest son is in the NFL. He plays for the New England Patriots. He did play for the San Diego Chargers for a while. He's been in the league for 10 years. He's going on his 11th year.
That's crazy.
And then I had 2 other sons that both played at Arkansas. And my middle son played linebacker up there. My other son played tight end. And then my daughter played volleyball in high school. And then she just graduated from Arkansas this weekend. So
Congratulations.
Yes, man, I've gotten all 4 of them through school. So it's been a great thing. But I think that's looked different in different seasons. And I'm in a different season now with all of my kids being adults and some of them starting their own families and having their own kids and all of that. But, what it looks like right now is that, I have to initiate those things. And so that may be a text, that might be a phone call, that might be me looking for ways that I can encourage my kids spiritually with maybe a verse, or also reminding my kids who are going through things or facing challenges in life, always referring them back to the scriptures or to some truth that they know, because it's easy for all of us to forget those things when we're going through stuff. And so it's more small ways than it is big ways. I think too, as a parent, it's also learning just to not speak.
So would you say that for all ages, or just?
I would not say that for all ages, but I do think with adult kids, I think about the verse, be slow to speak and quick to listen.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need to do a lot more listening, and you need to be very slow to speak. And I think sometimes, as with adult kids, we can want to interject and say things and continue to speak into our kids' lives when maybe they're not asking us to do that. And I think, and so I'm in a season where I do a lot of listening. And then when I'm asked questions, I share spiritual wisdom. And I think if we're
how hard is that for you to listen and not? I mean, you're a pastor. You used to ask people asking you advice, and you giving it to them. And sometimes, I mean, over the years, so you say you wouldn't do that all the time, but you do that now. So younger in life, you're speaking more directly into them. You're investing, giving them words, giving them stuff that they're really not looking forward to sometimes.
Yeah, I think when your kids are younger, you're highly directive.
Yeah.
You're when you have a 5-year-old, you're speaking a ton to them. It's almost like a coach. You're coaching them. You're having to be highly directive. I think as they get older, hopefully you're doing less and less of that. I do think with adult kids, oftentimes what I see is for parents, they don't ever make the transition. And your kids are trying to be independent, make their own decisions, lead their own families. And quite frankly, sometimes they don't care what you think. And I think, and yet I see a lot of parents that want to share it anyways, and it creates tension in the relationship.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that it's real hard for me, because I've tried to learn from other people that have gone before me, some that have done it incredibly well and others that haven't.
Sure.
And it's created tension with their kind of adult kids. And I find that as you nurture those relationships with your kids, they're strong enough that your kids are going to naturally come back and ask for your advice and those kind of things, because you have a relationship there and you're not having to force that conversation.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you were more nervous for the big games that you played in, or more nervous watching your kids playing the big games that they play in?
Well, that is an easy question. I'm a lot more nervous watching my kids play.
Yeah.
And whether that was in high school, I would say every level, the anxiety gets more. High school, when my kids were in high school, I thought, wow, man, this is really tough. A couple of my kids were big time recruits, and a lot of pressure and a lot of expectations, both in state and even out of state, and recruiting and all kinds of stuff. And so there was a lot of pressure. What I didn't realize is when you go to college, it ratchets up even more, because now you have social media and people are talking and everybody in the state is talking about the team. But then when you go to the NFL, it's even more. Just the expectations and what people think. And, you're on a national level. My son played this last year in the Super Bowl, and it's just a lot that happens with that. Now, some of that, that's just the way it is. And if you're going to step up to that level, you just need to expect it. But I do think as a parent, you carry a lot of that, wanting the best for your kids.
So back that up to high school. All your kids are in high school, different stages, different. Just as they're playing, I asked Alan Greenwood to ask a question. I was like, what should I ask? And he's like, well, why don't you just ask the question of when your athlete surpasses your current skill level to where you were and they're better than you were.
No doubt.
How do you sit in the stands? And do you cheer them on? Do you coach them from the stands? Do you out-coach the coach? Like, what does that look like? Because we're all there, if we're totally honest as parents, that we try to remember the way that we played when we were their age and try to coach them in ways instead of letting the coach be the coach and the parent be the parent. How do you separate that? And what are some best practices that you've found out along the way?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So let's give Alan some credit.
Yeah, absolutely. Alan Greenwood gets some credit.
Yeah, that's the one good question that Alan's come up with, right? And that'll make him listen to this podcast.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's an awfully hard thing to do. Yeah. And I see a lot of parents that are doing that really poorly. And what I mean is there, as a parent, if you're not careful, you can find a lot of your value and identity in your kids. And in particular, how well they're doing in their athletics or their academics or some other thing that may be going on in their life. And I think we all have to take a step back and say what's really motivating this. And I think what I realized is that what was most important to me with my kids. Was it how they did on the football field, or was it who they were as a person? And I always had to come back to that time and time again when I would feel the emotions that you're talking about, where maybe my kid wasn't performing at the level that I thought he or she needed to, or inwardly I was disappointed at the way they were playing. What do I really care about? Do I care about their heart and their love for the Lord and their character and the type of person they are, or the fact that they're a great football player or a great volleyball player or whatever it is? And I think that's a tension that I think parents fight. I think it's getting harder and harder because what I see with parents is the expectations are getting higher and higher for kids. Mm-hmm. I see kids now that have personal trainers that are 6, 7, 8 years old. And I think personal trainers can be wonderful. I do think, though, that some of that is motivated by a desire to have my kid be better than a lot of other kids. Mm-hmm. And I would just encourage parents that most kids are not going to play in college. Most kids aren't going to play in the NFL. And I do think what matters most is the heart of your kid, their character and who they are. And so my wife, Jenny, and I, we really invested in that as much as we could. It was about attitude. And so when we saw, I had a moment when my older son, Hunter, was also not only a good football player, he was a great basketball player, but we were playing a team, Cersei, and there was a moment on the court, and it can happen where emotions got the best of him and it got best of the other player. There were some things happened on the court, but what I didn't like about it at all was his attitude. And so after the game, he and I talked about that on the way home. And again, just coming back to character, about being the type of person that you say you are, both on the court or on the field and off the field. And I think we tried to live that as much as we can. I wasn't perfect in it. Not to say that there weren't some moments that, I didn't handle myself in the best way as a dad or as a father. And so I think, but I think always kind of keeping that in mind as a parent. Yeah. And I think it's hard being a coach today because I think a lot of parents are in the coach's ears about this or that. And I think a lot of that is motivated by, it may not be the healthiest of motivations.
So how do you, if you were to speak directly to parents, I mean, you already have been, but how do you clearly define the boundary of how far is too far and getting in the middle of your players, your kids as players, playing time or skill level or everything else, and then just cheering them on. And then you talked about character development. What does that look like in your home with your kids growing up?
Well, let's talk about the coaches.
Okay.
I have never had a conversation with any of my kids' coaches.
Unless they're in your living room trying to recruit your kids.
Right. But I never went to a high school coach and said, man, what's going on with my son and why is he not playing more, or why is my daughter not doing this?
Yeah.
And oftentimes I disagreed with some of the decisions and things that were being made, but I didn't go to the coach and say that. But I would tell my son or my daughter, you can go and talk to the coach.
Yeah.
There was one time after the season that I went and had a conversation with one of my son's position coach, but it was after the season, and just asked questions rather than coming in with accusations.
Yeah.
And that conversation went great.
Yeah.
But I think part of what I wanted my kids to understand is they need to own their conversations. They need to own their relationships. They need to own, and if they don't like where they are on the depth chart or their playing time, then you know what? You go out to practice and outwork people.
Yep.
And I think all of my kids would tell you that. And so I really didn't bend the coach's ear a lot. I didn't, we didn't talk much, or I didn't go to him and say, hey, why is my son running second team and da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Now, I will admit to you, with all of my kids, including my daughter, were pretty accomplished athletes and played pretty early in high school and those kind of things. So it wasn't all that. But even with that, you have things that happen. But I didn't talk to the coaches much about that. And I think it really taught my kids how to work through things on their own, rather than mom or dad trying to rescue that.
Absolutely.
Again, do I think sometimes it's appropriate to have a conversation with a coach? Yes, absolutely. I think it can be, particularly if it's impacting the emotional well-being of your son or your daughter. There can be some places that you need to step in and have those things.
Yeah. So we got about 5 minutes left here. Just wanted to give you the opportunity to speak to a parent of an athlete. You've seen them play at the high school level, collegiate level. You're one of the few in Central Arkansas that I know has a son playing at the NFL level.
As far as I know, the only, but I could be wrong.
There you go. So how do you, last 5 minutes, sports and ability and talent's great, but how do you get to the heart so that regardless of where they go, you're more worried about the person that they are instead of what they can do?
Well, I would ask yourself this question: what do you talk about most at home? And if you find that most of your conversations are about volleyball or football or baseball, maybe you're talking about the wrong things. And I think we try to make a lot of our conversations about the heart and about character and about Jesus. And we tried to make with our kids that what's most important is our relationship with Christ. And so we encouraged our kids to be involved in FCA. We encouraged our kids to go to Christian camps. We encouraged our kids to go to our Wednesday night student ministry. And those things were a priority, even more so than football. Mm-hmm. And that was very incredibly important to us. And I think, again, I'll come back to, I think sometimes as parents, we set our priorities on the wrong things. And it's not just athletics. It can be academics. It can be another thing. And I just think coming back to a desire that what the Lord is ultimately looking at is the child of your heart. I mean, your child's heart. Yeah. And what we wanted to more than anything with our kids is invest in them in such a way that when they got done, we had two goals. One is, and first and foremost, we wanted each one of our kids to love Jesus. And then the second thing was we wanted them to love the church. Now you say, well, that seems pretty simple. It was pretty simple. It's harder to accomplish, but we wanted our kids to love the church because I think a lot of times for pastors' kids, when when they leave the home and they get out into college and everything else, they don't like the church because they feel like, man, maybe their dad got beat up by the church, or they don't like the people in the church. And that was really important to us. And I'm just really thankful, really, for all four of my kids. I feel like all four of my kids, they're at different places in their spiritual journey, but I feel like all of them love Jesus and love the church. And now as young adults are making a difference for the kingdom themselves.
That's awesome.
Which is really fun to see.
Absolutely. I'm reminded you've raised Ford as pastor's kids. I'm a pastor kid. Zach's a pastor's kid. And my dad always tells me, we are human beings, not human doings. And who you be determines what you do. And
I didn't know your dad was a pastor.
Yeah. My dad's pastor. Been pastor my entire life. And I told God I was not going to.
Is he Church of Christ or Baptist?
He retired Baptist. Now he just works at a nonprofit here in Lonoke County. And,
cool.
And we're excited to have him close by. And he's always like, take care of yourself, take care of yourself, take care of yourself. And God will take care of opportunities for you to share him with the people that you're around everywhere that we go.
Bunch of two pastor kids here. Wow.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
I told God a long time ago, if he brought around a pastor's kid who wanted to do ministry, I'd hire him on the spot because I get it.
Yeah.
They understand how to care for people and love on each other. So
no doubt.
So Mark, thanks so much for your time today.
And it's an honor to be here.
Yeah, I
so
appreciate it. I feel like we could do another one of these. I'd love to get you and Robert in the same room at the same time just to hear the stories.
I know we tried to pull that together.
Yeah, well, there's still time. We've already proven we can do this for a year, so we can do it for another year and make it happen too. So thanks so much for joining us today for the Central Arkansas FCA podcast, Beyond the Huddle. So glad that you're here. Y'all have a great week of worship, and we'll see you next week.